What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to a little bit of a delayed post game here, but we are here nonetheless to break down a Nebraska win. At moments, it seemed like we were going to run away with it, and my 14-point prediction win didn't look too stupid there for a little while. Then we flirted with disaster for just a moment, but our confidence hopefully didn't waver. I still felt pretty confident in what we were doing. I still felt pretty confident, even though when it went to a one-score game that we were going to lock into that because I thought UCLA was very limited in what they were able to do offensively. All things considered, we kind of boxed them into what they could do, but we'll dive into that a little bit. We'll dive into the good, the bad, the ugly, the good on offense, some of the bad on defense, and of course TJ Latif's debut. So, Brian, first off, how was your night, man?
Well, I was up since 5 a.m. Saturday, so when you're like, we might delay the post game, I was like, yeah, let's do that because it was 1 o'clock by the time I got to bed last night, and that was just I wanted to listen to Rule's post game presser, and then I was done. So
yeah,
it was a good night for the most part.
I was dealing with an adopted Chihuahua that I adopted from the Humane Society 2 days ago, and she's still a little under the weather, but not only that, she still hasn't figured out how to be separate from me yet. So it was one of those things and like around my dog. So it was just she was back and forth waiting for me to come in there to lay down and stuff like that. So I'm like, I feel like she's going to scratch my door down if I try this post game. She wasn't feeling well. So I'm trying to watch the game and deal with this sick Chihuahua. So I'm like, you know what? It's probably in our best interest. Maybe if we push this back, because it's probably going to be a better show if we do that. So that way my wife can be with the little Chihuahua and her name's Rosie. And then I could come in here and do this. So another day, she's feeling a little better now. And Brian's feeling a little bit better. He's got some rest now. So
yeah, I mean, I've been exhausted all day, but thank God I have Cranium energy drinks because that shit is good.
Let's go ahead. No sponsor. If you do want to sponsor, reach out. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it, man. First things first, the obvious, well, TJ Latif is the obvious, but the obvious key part of this game, Emmitt Johnson. What a game. What do they say? First 100 since what was that? Do you know that? Did you see that stat?
I didn't see the exact year, but I want to say it's been a substantial amount of time.
Oh my, it was unbelievable performance, and just everything was kind of opened up. Holgorsen called an excellent game plan. It just seemed like the offense overall executed to such a high level, man. All 11 on the offense were executing from the jump. They rallied around TJ, man, made his life as easy as possible. And TJ, of course, executed what he needed to on what he needed to. So they said, kind of the game plan wasn't going to be super, super vanilla. And there were moments where they let him kind of play quarterback. There were a lot of things that they simplified for him, but it wasn't one of those things where it's like, it's not a normal true freshman QB coming out there and just, only take this read if it's there. There was a couple checks that we saw, a couple look-offs of safeties and defenders, and played kind of beyond his years. So, and we did talk about how we expected him to do pretty well with a full week of practice and stuff like that. So, not surprised. I mean, TJ, I talked about it on his film when I did his film breakdown a long time ago. Like, I talked about it last week. The touch he has on his throw is incredible. He knows how to fit it into windows when need be, and we saw it kind of on that back shoulder throw last week. But again, just now when you have a game plan coming out fully, designed to your skill set, it makes your life a whole lot easier. So,
here's my one thought. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead. We got to give Mike some credit here in just a second. So, Mike, you hold on to that thought, bud.
Yeah, we mentioned you before we went live, Mike. But my one thought after last night's game is this right here. Needs to be a serious discussion. I think he's the best back in the country right now, and it's not even close.
I'm with you.
There is no one that is impacting their team on a week-to-week basis like he is.
But let's be honest, the Heisman Trophy has not been that award. It doesn't matter anymore about
what quarterback award.
Pretty much. I mean, you had Travis Hunter last year, but that's because he's a two-way player doing something nobody's ever done before. Yeah. It's gone away from – it's like the MVP in the NFL. It's gone away from like, oh, this player is having the most impact on his team this year. Without him, like it's not like an above replacement type award. It's gone specifically to media name award type of deal. And if Nebraska was undefeated and his numbers were the same, let me ask you this question: if Nebraska was undefeated right now and his numbers were what they were, and he's doing what he's doing, is he in the Heisman conversation?
100%.
I agree.
He's top 5 nationally in rushing.
Yeah.
Top 5, I believe, in running backs receiving yards, all-purpose yards. I believe he leads the country. He has, after last night, I think 11 rushing touchdowns on the year and probably 3 to 5 receiving. I'm just going off the top of the dome right now.
Yep.
There is not a guy who is impacting the game more in the country on a consistent basis than Emmett Johnson right now.
Great.
And all credit to EJ Barthel, to Dana Holgerson for convincing him to come back after he entered the portal in December. This is why they were willing to let Dante Dowdell walk, because of what we have with Emmett Johnson. And I hate to say it, but it's been really 1 year of him going wire to wire as the dude at running back, and it's going to be the only year we get to see this with him, because there's no way he comes back, and he shouldn't. At this point, he's working himself into probably a 2nd to 3rd round draft pick. He was already considered a top 5 running back in next year's NFL draft by Mel Kiper. He basically has taken over, in my opinion, outside of maybe Love at Notre Dame, as a top running back in all of college football. So that was my big takeaway last night.
And Matt Rule, I think it was Matt Rule that alluded to this. There was NFL scouts there, a bunch of NFL scouts in the press box. So, he might have bumped his draft stock there a bit too, just doing it in front of those guys, but taking on a heavy workload. But we knew that was going to happen. We knew he was going to go out there and he was going to touch the ball a lot. And boy, did he do a lot with his touches. Again, just finding those hidden yards, finding ways to help this offense out. But even just when he's not involved, the way he sells it, everything that he does across the board, it's not just when he has the ball in his hands, when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. Like, the guy is just a grinder and a football player. And back to 2023 when he was, talking about he had to work twice as hard and not kind of getting an opportunity. Now we see what happens when you get a guy who is talented as all get out, but also works twice as hard as the guys around him and just wants to succeed. And Emmett Johnson, man, has just been such an incredible, like, where is he at in terms of rush? I know he's over 1,000 yards, but what was the last like running back that we had get like 1,500 yards? I don't even know. Was it Abdullah?
I think Divino Zigbo got about 1,100. His one really good year, but before that had to have been Amir, his senior year, and then his junior year, where he had 1,300 each year at least.
So we've been making that comparison like a lot. You've been talking about it a lot too, like more than anything. And I mean, he's flirting with those numbers, which is absurd to think about.
Yeah,
albeit with this offense being kind of sporadic at times, he's just been a consistent, go-to guy, and it just the way he just is willing this offense is incredible.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly why I think he is so damn good. Is the ups and the downs with the offense this year. He's been your one constant, and that says a lot about who he is as a player. On the year, he's averaging 4.6 yards per attempt. He's got 1,131 yards. I'm sorry, 5.6 yards per attempt, 1,131 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's very likely, if he averages 100 over the next 2 games, which is quite frankly very realistic, you're looking at 1,300 yards.
That's I would be curious to say. I mean, I would probably venture to guess the last running back that did that was Abdullah. Off the top of my head, just thinking of running backs that we've had, it has to be Abdullah. All right.
Receiving stats.
Husker
too.
Power.
300 yards receiving.
GBR. When's the last 1,500 all-purpose yard running back we had? Probably Amir.
Probably. Forgot the shout out, Mike.
7-3 for the first time in a while. Yeah, we're gonna get to him. He's coming up here. Yo, EJ is a beast. All right, Mike, you did call it. You called a few things actually. We're gonna give you credit on one that was kind of on the fence, but go ahead.
So Friday's call-in show, Mike made the the prediction that TJ Lateef would have 3 touchdowns, 2 short and 1 long. I am giving Mike 100% on this because the screen was a short pass turned into a 56-yard touchdown. And then he had the short pass to Ja'Cory. And then the longer touchdown was the wheel route to Emmett, which probably 20, 25 yards in the air at most. And then turned into like a 46-yard touchdown. So Mike also said first 25. Yeah, so that's the other one too. So 4 for 4 on the day for Mike. We all need to be calling Mike and say, hey, should I bet the mortgage this week?
Yeah.
And if he says, yeah, you bet the mortgage.
Mike, I don't know who you know, but keep talking to them, whoever it is. And then just reach out to me with whenever you have betting advice. Because that was pretty crazy. When you started rattling this stuff, I was like, okay, all right, cool. And then you go for 4 for 4. It's kind of wild. Drop a like on the stream for my Mike. What's up, guys? Glad to have this show on my birthday because it's been booming, boring, not booming, the opposite. Ron T, what's up, man? Happy birthday to you, brother.
Happy
Appreciate
birthday.
it. Happy birthday, man. Thanks for tuning in. And sorry it's been a slow birthday. It was started out slow for me because the Texans were down 19 and somehow came all the way back with Davis Mills at quarterback. We had a 1.6% chance to win. I was checked out, bro. I was on my phone just scrolling, and the game's on in the background. And next thing I know, we're climbing back into that thing. I was like, holy cow. TJ looked good for his very first start. That he did. We'll dive into a little bit of some of the schemes and stuff like that in a second. I believe the first 100 receiving and rushing since Corey Ross.
So
that's a throwback.
That'd have been 2002 to 2005, I think.
Yeah,
is when he played. I might be wrong, but it's around that time frame.
It's been a long time. For the first time in a long time, the offense moved crisp and aggressively like they knew what they were doing. Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit because one of the things TJ, of course, we knew he brought the dual threat and they came out with that QB run early. And I think that was to just kind of let them know like, hey, we're not going to be afraid to run this guy. But one of the things that I think it really does, because some of the concepts that have shown up on tape are designs that we're just not getting the timing on because we're not, Raiola doesn't have the ability to move the pocket. They're not opening up and there's not time for them to open up. And by the time that they need to be there, his eyes are moving or he's having to move or he's not stepping up the pocket, et cetera, et cetera. What his legs were able to do is kind of delay the defense a little bit. And just that half-second delay gave everything an opportunity to actually just kind of set up in front of him. And here's the only thing the only problem that I have, because I can't get behind a lot of the, again, Dylan's a great quarterback. I can't get behind like we're benching Dylan next year, that type of thing, or that type of thing. Just yet. Because if Dylan was playing behind a better O-line, I think we would see a lot more of what we saw yesterday with the timing stuff opening up and stuff like that. But I think TJ adds that element that we need behind this current O-line, and that's not to say he's even the better quarterback behind this line, because again, UCLA not great defensively, not even good defensively in a lot of ways. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks. But what it does is set up a lot of the deficiencies on this, or kind of mask a lot of the deficiencies that really work against Dylan, and allow just a split second, a moment of opportunity. And credit to Lateef, man, because even when the pocket was kind of collapsing around him a few times, like he just hung in there and trusted that the play was going to open up. He trusted his guys to do their job. And that is something that, for whatever reason, Dylan's taken a lot of shots over the last couple seasons. Very well could be due to that. But like he gave the plays a little bit of a chance to set up. And again, UCLA is not, didn't get a ton of a pass rush on him and stuff like that. But that little hesitation that they had on the defensive side of the ball and then mixing up with the motions, then you got Emmett jumping in there and doing what he does, like all of that just delays them a little bit. and then makes them hesitate. And then it gets them on their heels. And then once they were on their heels, it was just kind of like he could sit back and cook. Because we've seen what the element of running quarterback can just do to our defense, So think about that flipped around.
Not Madden, Nico. I almost said his brother's name there.
Yeah.
Nico was basically their entire offense for UCLA. And this is where, for me, it was frustrating to watch because I love mobile quarterbacks and I love Dylan Raiola, but seeing how much a mobile quarterback changes things for your offense, to me, is just what Nebraska needs. Now, I'm not saying you go out and you bench Dylan by any means. I think
for sure
that would be
but I'm with you, just based on what the offense is at this moment and the deficiencies that it has.
The big one I think of is it was his first pass attempt. It was a play action rollout. They had Emmett in the flat, and then I believe it was Dane Key or Hunter coming from the opposite side of field on a drag route. And they just gave him 2 quick reads or take off and go. Of course, he hit, I believe it was Hunter actually on that play. But they actually came back to a very similar play at the end of the game. Tough situation, right? It's a 4-minute drill. I believe it was second down. It might have been first. But the trust that they showed in TJ there to make that throw, and I tweeted something to the extent that at least one of our coordinators has the balls to close this game out, because that was them saying, we're not going to give you a chance to get the ball back. We're going to keep you on your heels. You think we're running it? Nope, we're going to roll it out and throw it. And he took a big hit. And that's what I remember the most, is he took a big hit and fired it in there perfectly for the completion. And I think he did very good. He played within the offense. UCLA's defense is terrible. So I want to keep that in perspective. But when I look at the touchdown pass to Emmett on the wheel route, that play, they had Carter Nelson, it looked like on a post, and he was looking at Carter, which pulled the safety over and then freed up Emmett on the wheel route. There was a couple of times in the game where he used his eyes to move a safety to clear up something underneath. And that was what was really good, is he was executing.
There was that one play where it was kind of like the delayed, was it kind of like the handoff, and then Emmett was delayed out of the backfield. We came out in 12 personnel. And I think it was Carter Nelson motioning across, if I'm not mistaken. You know which one I'm talking about?
Carter going right to left.
Yeah, so Carter was going right to left, and like that was a beautiful play design, because like essentially what they did there was you make them pass those zones, and this is kind of where Holgerson's kind of genius shows, because in that play they're coming out in 12 personnel, and they had a look earlier in that game. 12 personnel, by the way, is 1 run back, 2 tight ends, for those that don't know. But they came out and ran the ball in that look a bunch, and then they blocked and set everything up like this was going to be a run, right? And UCLA, I think they kind of were rolling. They had like a rolling to like a single high zone. I'm not sure if it was like cover 3 or cover 6. I can't remember off the top of my head, because I need to see the full press box to be able to see the full field to see what the coverage was. But basically what they did was, when they moved Carter Nelson across, like I don't know if you saw number 6 on that side kind of pass that wave out to signal that zone exchange. So like whenever Carter Nelson came, he kind of ran that seam, but that run motion, that fake run motion, brought the linebackers up. Then you had, I think it was Heiner Carberg coming off the other side on a little like flat. And so then that occupies one of the linebackers. Then you had Carter Nelson coming off that other side, which occupied number 6 long enough to where Emmett was able to just kind of sneak out around him. And basically what they did was, that was just kind of like a misalignment thing, where they just kind of like flooded the numbers over there, essentially. So like it forced UCLA to like communicate, which they don't do a very good job of. They're not a very good communicative defense as it sits. So we saw that a lot throughout the night. And but he knew as soon as they motioned over, okay, like this is zone. So this is exactly what he wants. And then he fakes that, they fake the inside handoff, and he rolls it right a little bit, which just gets everybody just slightly stepping to that side. And then you have like Harburg, I think, was running like a little short, little flat route, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have the tight end Carter Nelson on the other side, kind of running that deep kind of just kind of running across the face of number 6 there. And that little bit of a delay allowed it to where he wasn't able to get back over in time. But basically, they just kind of created like a run pass kind of conflict over there and just overloaded that side. So they didn't have enough people to take on, because you're bringing a tight end across and then you're bringing the other tight end on that side of the field. So you have one coming across to that side of the field, one coming up the field, and then you have the running back coming to that side of the field. And you don't have enough guys over there to really cover all that. On top of that, your linebackers are their first step is forward. So like it was just a beautiful play design all around. And then just, of course, TJ executing as good as he did, trusting that throw was going to be there, because it's not an easy play to just look right and then all of a sudden just, be ready to throw it and just, throw it in rhythm. Sometimes you're going to like hesitate because it's like, okay, you're thinking to yourself, is this going to be open? Should I just throw it? Like it just overall was a beautiful play concept design. And that's what we saw throughout that route progression with the flat, the over, leak. You're just stretching the zones horizontally and vertically as much as you can. And that's all built off of Emmett, though, because without Emmett being as successful as he was with running the ball, like that bootleg misdirection stuff, that's not ever going to work. So you have the flat, the over, the leak, and then you have that guy who's supposed to be a curl flat defender, and he can't even get back on it time because you overloaded his zone. Like it was beautiful. It was a beautiful concept. And then we saw that like again all throughout the night. And TJ was just the perfect quarterback, I feel like, to run what they needed to do, especially against his UCLA defense, who cannot stop the run to save their lives to begin with. So already they were going to be stressed, with Emmett Johnson coming in there. So yeah, just overall, just like a beautiful play call by Holgorsen, beautiful game design by him, and then execution by everybody. I mean, blocking down the field was great. Like it requires all 11 still at the end of the day. And so we saw a lot of really good stuff. There's another play that I'll talk about here in a little bit, where is that Dane Key quick little slant, kind of over the middle. You remember that one?
RPO. It was RPO, right?
Yeah. So they brought Dane Key across, and you had Heinrich Harburg lined up right there. You had Dane Key, I think, right next to him. And so whenever they brought him across, again, those zones communicated, one step down, one stayed back. But what basically Harburg did is he knew, like, once that guy stepped down, he just ran right into his chest, right? And then that guy just got basically picked out of that. And the other guy, like, they did that so they wouldn't get picked. And then you have Harburg who just blew right through him, right? Occupy that guy. And the other guy got picked. And then Dane Key's able to just make a quick little slant. Like, and then that goes for, I don't know what it went for, 30, 40 yards. But it's just the little things like that, like those little execution things. That's why I tell people, like, and talk about on the show a lot, like, when we're not executing offensively and it looks abysmal, sometimes it's the smallest little things that are really making those things kind of fall apart. It's those smaller, like, like when that motion comes across, maybe Harburg doesn't get into his chest enough, or, doesn't get off the ball fast enough to be able to get that guy screened off in time. Or create that little misdirection. Like, those little things matter. And that's the difference. And I think that little bit of a hesitation that TJ was able to create just early on, with his ability to run the ball, I think that just made all the difference in the world.
I think the whole game plan was phenomenal. I come away from that game actually pleasantly surprised. I was not very confident, I guess, that we would, based on this year where we've had so many ups and downs, this was the best the offense has looked all year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe part of it is they did simplify things. But one thing I noticed was this game in particular from the rest, Nebraska won on first down all night long. I mean, they were averaging upwards of 5 or 6 yards a carry on first down. They had 8 third downs in the game. And one of those was,
do you have the third down totals up, by the way? I'm curious to know.
I think they ended up 6 of 8, which one of them was when they kneeled it at the end of the game. So who gives a shit about that one? So really, you're looking at 6 of 7.
Okay.
Yep. If I'm not mistaken, maybe it
Pretty
was
good.
5 of 7.
Pretty damn good.
And their average yards to go on third down, outside of one of them, it was 2.3 yards. And they had 1 third and long where they ran. It was 3rd and 13. They just kind of said, hey, we'll punt it. And then UCLA went 92 yards. But with the exception of that one, they were constantly winning. They were constantly ahead of the sticks. And that, when you're facing 2nd and 5 or even 2nd and 6, your whole playbook is open. And that allows you to say, let's just run it again here. Or maybe we can hit him with the play action. Even if you try a deeper pass and you fail, you still have a third and manageable situation. And they were constantly in those. And I think that is as big of a reason outside of consistently running the ball and sticking to it as to why that offense was successful last night, in my opinion.
No, yeah. And that's what you get when you have an offense designed around a running quarterback where you run with intent and purpose, as opposed to what UCLA was doing with Nico. Because I talked about on Friday, I was like, it'll be really interesting to see, because you got two similar. All right, you're gonna have to back out, come back in. I'm back going. We're almost at the 30-minute mark. All right, we'll pop him back in here. This thing, for those of you that aren't normally here, this thing starts to echo about 30 minutes every time. That's StreamYard for you. Technology is not our friend. So, all right. But anyways, kind of forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, Nico Iamaleava on the other side. I was like, it was going to be interesting because like the two offenses were going to look very kind of similar in a lot of the play designs that they wanted to run. But you saw what happens when you have a quarterback that runs within the structure and the confines of the offense, and then a quarterback that is running for his life. And I think too, in a lot of cases, like people conflate those two and just think throw a running quarterback out there and things are going to go well. And while there are moments, you're going to get a lot of what you had at UCLA. And so with on their side of the football, like you had Nico kind of running for his life, and all I know Butler's going to take a lot of heat for, the defensive side of the ball and stuff like that. But I don't really know if the defense was as bad as everybody, kind of makes it out to be. It wasn't as good as it should have been. Again, I was talking about how I thought it was going to be a defensive performance because I thought they were going to build some off of that aggression that they had against USC. I did not see that same level of intensity on the defensive side of the ball, which I didn't necessarily love. But if you got a quarterback running around here scrambling for his life and like that's all they're getting offensively, then okay, we'll take that. Like you gotta take what you can get. Nico's not a bad quarterback at the end of the day. So
he had a good game, played well.
He did, yeah. He got folded backwards a few times. He took some hits, man. I was telling you, some of those short yardage situations, like he ran into some walls and got folded. Pop back up though.
I was pretty frustrated with the defense by the.
Oh, it was definitely frustrating. It's definitely frustrating, but I think some people are overreacting a little bit.
I'm very confused by my opinion of Sean Butler because it seems like whenever we play a running quarterback like Nico, 15 carries for 86 yards, there's not really an adjustment. They don't put a spy on him. They're constantly in man coverage. Nebraska runs man coverage 60 to 70% of the time. So your DB's backs are always turned. So it makes you susceptible to the run game from the quarterback perspective. But like at the end of the day, you look throughout the year and they're not giving up a lot of points. If anything, they gave up explosive plays a lot. And I think UCLA had 7 rushes over 10 yards last night. But then you get into the red zone and they typically bow up. Or they cross the 50 and they typically bow up. So to me, it's really frustrating because it feels like in the fourth quarter, he gets way less aggressive with his play calls. Yesterday, Nebraska had a 3-touchdown lead going into the fourth quarter. And this is where my frustrations are. Yeah,
put your foot down.
Exactly. Like we have to be able to go out and finish the game. And yeah, we end up winning. But like I said, prior to us going live was in 5 wins this year, we've given up 2-score leads in the fourth quarter. The only 2 games we didn't were against Houston Christian and Akron, which those weren't even a contest, to be real. And your comment to me was they have to get that fixed because Penn State and Iowa are different animals. Especially Penn State and Iowa's run games. They're not going to maybe allow you to even have that chance to come back if you do blow a lead, because they're just going to run it down your throat and you can't stop it. But to me, John is saying, I'm not going to get beat with the pass. I'll let you get 5 or 6 yards of carry, then I'm going to bow up. once you cross that 50-yard line. And so it's really frustrating because I feel like we played really good until that fourth quarter hits, and then he changes his scheme maybe. But it seemed like last night it was just rush 3, drop 8.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, I think especially once we got a lead there, I think that just aggression went away. And that's the problem, is when you start playing not to lose as a little bit opposed to just kind of putting teams away. And like, I get because you can't then kind of go a little bit more conservative offensively and then play not to lose defensively, because that's how you get caught up in a situation like you did last night, where all of a sudden you give them a little bit momentum. And now I know John Butler probably saw what he was seeing and was like, okay, like, we'll take this QB run. But then as soon as things started to get a little dicey and they started to get a little momentum, that's when we should have flipped the switch back on. And we should have started bringing people after him, because, for what Nico was able to do, and Dason not being there, makes a difference, because you really have Dason McCullough's athleticism out there and his versatility that adds a lot of element to this defense. However, that's not really an excuse to blow a 3 touchdown lead, and get as conservative as it felt like they did. Now, I will say the individual defensive efforts wasn't too terribly upset about. It was just kind of, and it was another thing too. It's just like, is he willing to just like not give up that extra defender for the spy? Because that was my curiosity. I was like, I wonder which team's going to try to throw a spy out there, which team's going to force the other one into using that extra defender. And it didn't seem like either one of them was willing to want to use a spy. Now, we didn't run with TJ as enough, I feel like, for them to use a spy, because we were trying to protect him as much as possible. We do need him to survive over the next couple weeks too. So I do like how we were smart there, because I thought there might be some kind of effort to maybe try to get them to spy and then try to take advantage of that situation. But yeah, the running quarterbacks and the running defense is what it is at this point. I think I talked about it this past week, that it's just like, we got to just kind of find a way to, it's at this point, if it has not improved at this point in the season, it's not going to get fixed. And it is what it is. And so at this point, we just got to stop being surprised about it, and just everything else has to be on point. And at times, not everything was on the defensive side of the ball like it has been other times this season, and it almost came back to bite us.
Yeah, UCLA was 8 of 14 on third downs too. Which
you can't have that.
You can't do that. And I think on that,
you're not going to win many games like that.
Yeah, that 92-yard drive, I think they had 4 third down conversions. And
well, even Maryland had sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but even Maryland in their game, I believe they had a really good third down conversion percentage too in that game we won.
Yeah. I think what UCLA, like that last drive where they scored to go be within 7, we had them in 3rd and long 3 times, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And the rush got home, and then Nico would step up or spin out or, be Houdini and disappear for a second. And next thing you know, he's running for 15 yards and a first down.
Yeah.
I don't know how you stop that. I think Nico is a unique athlete. He's, 6'5", he's 230 pounds. He's a physical runner, very athletic, very nimble. Sometimes you just got to chalk it up and say, you know what, you got us there. But to me, it's frustrating knowing like you have 8 guys in coverage and you still, or even 7 guys in coverage, and you still can't even prevent him from getting a first down. If he gets 3 or 4 yards, whatever. But he was running 10 yards before anyone was getting near him. And then they wouldn't break down either. They would just come flying in, head down, tackle in air, basically.
And this is kind of just the problem when you don't have, we talked about it all offseason, but when you don't have those dudes up front in your defensive line. Because then you are flirting with, okay, it's a numbers game. Kind of like Nebraska did to UCLA, right? We're trying to occupy as many numbers as we can. And when it comes to Kurt Shiroka does this a lot with Rutgers. What Kurt Shiroka's offense does, and the way he does so much with so little offensively, is kind of like I talked about earlier with that play where we were kind of stretching their zones horizontally and vertically, but he just tries to create mismatches with numbers, right? He tries to get, if you have 5 on this side, we're going to try to get 6 on that side, right? And we're just going to try to flood your defense, on that side of the ball. And then when we get that going, we're going to try to create misdirection, and we're going to flood it over there, but we're going to sneak it over this way. Now, when you have a defensive line that can't really hold their own and you start pulling numbers away, then that opens up a lot in the pass game. And then so I'm just wondering where Butler's head's at with that, because is it just because he doesn't want to start pulling people away in pass pro? Because I do feel like we have a good enough secondary to where we can trust some of these guys a little bit more on an island and maybe just mix it up a little bit more with a little bit more aggression. I think they've kind of shown that. Was it because maybe Dason wasn't in there and we had a couple of guys, rotating in that aren't normally rotating in, that maybe he didn't, was it just trying to be a little bit safer because of that? Like, those are the things that we don't know, because Dason, we didn't even realize was going to be out until game time.
Yeah.
And what it ultimately being, what did he say, a stinger?
Yeah, they didn't even let him travel. So
yeah, he didn't even travel. Stingers
probably happened.
Stingers are no joke. Stingers are no joke. But maybe it's just a matter of like, trying to play that bend don't break and not letting them get the numbers, so that way they don't end up, kind of like Nebraska was making explosive plays, and you try to just limit everything in front of you as much as possible, so that way you can get behind your offense, and they had some trust in their offense and maybe trusted them enough to where it's like, okay, we can, rattle this off and hold this off. But I just still want to see a little bit more aggression out there. And one of the things that I talked about that I liked, about Butler was typically his aggression with his defensive backs, and, ultimately what I thought would transpire into his defense. And he does show that at times. And our DB coach as well, Addison Williams, like, he always has very aggressive defensive backs. So I thought that would show a lot more this year. And I'm just not sure why we're not seeing that aggression more often, especially against a team like UCLA, when you have a chance to put your throat down, like put your foot on their throat. Like last night was the prime opportune time to be able to just kind of start, throwing the dogs out there and letting those guys loose. And I wanted to see that going into the next couple weeks, to just get some confidence and maybe try some, a couple different things, because again, Penn State looked pretty good against Indiana. Indiana had to make some kind of crazy, miraculous, like 2022 Jackson Smith and Jigba catch where he just barely gets his foot down.
That was most insane.
That was the lucky. Can we just talk about how lucky catches like that are? Let's not act like the dude
he did not have the wherewithal to get his foot down mid-flight. He just happened to.
It just happens, bro. Like, body control is incredible. I will say that. But like, that's just a matter of like, I feel like that DB, if that DB just, maybe makes a little bit of an effort to push him, he's out of bounds. But I digress. Screw it. I can't stand Indiana. But anyways, Penn State, I talked about this, I was like, even though they lost James Franklin, it's a talented team. They're not going to be easy by any stretch. They are a team that can get physical with you and can run the ball. And I would have liked to see just us get aggressive this week, and again, carry that over into another week. USC, we did it for most of the game. This week, it seemed like I just want to see that consistency of the play calling and how we're dialing up that defense. But maybe it was just kind of, again, just bend, don't break. Try to keep everything in front of you and avoid the big explosive plays over the top and quick touchdowns.
100%. I think that's part of it. I also think they just don't have a lot of depth at certain spots, so you have to be a little bit more cautious with your play calling, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Jack in particular, especially with Dason out, really Dylan Rogers is your only Jack right now. Willis McGahee the fourth is redshirting, and I would not be shocked if he's not with the team next year. I think I even texted you before the game. Jordan Ochoa, like, started the year second on the depth chart. Where's he been?
Yep.
They just don't have depth at Jack. They don't have depth at the defensive line. They have pretty good depth at the other linebacker spots, but how aggressive can you be knowing if you suffered an injury like Dason, what do you have after that? That was the first time we'd seen Dylan Rogers in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing at the secondary. They have tons of depth, right? You have Rex Guthrie, you have Buford, who, has been supplanted by Guthrie, but still a good depth piece. You have Marshall. You've got Syer Wright. Deshaun, I feel like, is having an all-conference type year, but you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with those guys just because of how much depth you have there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And we're gonna need, you know, especially against Iowa, we're gonna need all hands on deck. One of the things that flipping back to the offensive side of the ball, though, that I did talk about is I did want to see, you know, I talked about this on Tuesday, but I was like, yeah, I don't want them. I want them to come out and try, to not oversimplify the game plan for TJ, which they didn't do, because again, this was going to be the easiest game in this stretch coming up too. So overall, did you like kind of what they did to kind of stress him, or not stress him, but like to put a little bit more on his plate? Because we had to see him do it against a somewhat bad defense before we trusted him to kind of go out there and do it against those, and kind of looking forward over the next couple of weeks, like what are your expectations? Just out of curiosity, what do you think?
I was expecting more of the RPO game for the UCLA game. They did run it, but I expected a very heavy dose of it. I did like the rollout game, getting him out of the pocket. I think that is like what Nebraska should have been doing all year with how bad the offensive line has been. I'm curious if they continue to utilize that, getting him away from the pocket, getting him on the move, let him make that decision to run or throw it. I would be really curious to see kind of what their plan is for drop back passes, I guess is the way to put it. Because he didn't just have too many straight drop back passes. He also wasn't put in very many tough situations. So
And
that stuff over the bye week, we have to get into.
When he did drop back, just to it was misdirection stuff going around with the motions and stuff like that too, and flooding. So good.
But I'm curious, when you're in Happy Valley on a Saturday night or whatever time the game ends up being, and it's a 3rd and 12, and it's a big moment in the game, and it's a clear passing situation. Like, what does the play call look like? How does TJ respond? Because I think this was all around the best performance from every single player across the board. I mean, BFF scores were through the roof this week. Part of that is just because your competition was really bad. But part of that, too, is you have to give credit. They got him ready.
What?
It's bad. Like when we talked about Tay Ellis, how does your team respond in adversity? That was a big thing for him.
Yeah.
This was a very adverse situation. You're on the road. You're without Dylan Raiola. You have a very green quarterback, and you guys went out and just dominated from start to finish, really offensively.
Well, think about it this way too. Like that element of the run softens everything up. So that's kind of what, like they made TJ's life easier. He made their life easier because when you have defensive backs who then have to kind of play a little softer because you have the threat of the running quarterback, then all of a sudden your blocks become easier on the outside. Your blocks become easier for your line because they're not firing off the ball as aggressively as they normally would. So, and then to your point about, rolling out and stuff like that stuff has to be there because everything stresses those zones. And when you have a running quarterback, teams aren't going to be able to play as much man because then you're turning your back to the quarterback. Then you have to put a spy, or you run the risk of the run outs and the quarterback scrambling all the time. So with that like rollout, they have to then the zones have to figure out, what am I going to crash down on this? Like, am I going to stay with my zone? And like I think that's kind of the recipe for success when you don't have an offensive line that is playing up to par, is you just stress that defense in their zones as much as possible and just try to like overload those like we did last night. And I think that's kind of like we talked about earlier in the show, like that just has to be a recipe for success the rest of the season moving forward. So I think everything that we saw this past week, we're going to see that. But I do think they probably kept a lot of stuff in the bag as well. So maybe that's why you didn't see everything that you maybe anticipated seeing. I think they ran, a lot of the stuff, but I think they kind of kept a lot of it in the bag too, because that early lead gave them the opportunity. Because I mean, you didn't, what did he throw, 15 passes?
Yeah, he's 13 of 15.
So he didn't have to go out there and air it out 27 times. So they kept a lot of things, and I don't, they were scoring fairly quickly. They didn't run a ton of plays. I don't know what the total is, but it seemed like we ran a lot less plays because I think UCLA had to try to sustain a couple drives to score, and then we were scoring fairly quick. So they 54 plays. Yeah. So we were able to keep a lot close to the vest as well. That'll help us go into the next week and then into Iowa. So All right, let's see here.
The
And
big
then
thing is now you've got tape out.
yes, yeah, that's another thing too. Is let's see how he adjusts now that everything's kind of on film.
Yep.
And that's why, like last night, you were texting me, and I was just kind of like, I feel like people are not overreacting, because that I feel like when you
There's
when you
some
try
out
to
there.
say people are overreacting, then that makes it seem like you're going to you have to root against the guy. And I like what I'm saying is just like, this was a week where we went against a defense that was a pretty favorable matchup. I just we've been shell shocked before. We've had quarterbacks come out and make, have good performances, and then once they get kind of figured out and all that stuff, not saying he will get figured out, but I just want to see it against Penn State, who is a very physical defense, an athletic defense, and a defense with a lot of depth. I think last season, because I did a Big Ten show last season, and when I was doing research for Penn State a little bit going into the playoff, like they had rotated like 37 or so guys to their defense without a lot of injury. So like that's just depth. And so they got a lot of depth on that defense too. So let's see how that works out with those guys who are super athletic, super physical, and a defense with a lot of depth, and the defense that came out and played pretty well last week against Indiana, all things considered.
Yeah, that's the best offense in football.
Yep. All right, let's but Ohio State's by far the best team. I've said that for 3 years in a row. We represented well last night. I was at the game sitting next to TJ's family. Great people. Yes, shout out to Husker Nation, man. That was just turning everything into a home game at this point. Turning everything into that was a great interview after the game. Yeah. That's the one good thing about not having to do the post game right after, is I was able to kind of watch the interviews off the field, when they were coming off the field after the game. So that was fun to see. So
yeah,
and
it was fun.
Let's see. I did not expect our offense to look that good.
Me either.
I think if anybody says that well, I predicted 24-10. So I expected us to play pretty well, but they outperformed my expectations. If EJ goes 100 plus against Penn State and Iowa, then he should be invited to New York City. Should. Will he? Probably not.
Unless we win both, then maybe.
Mike, I don't bet either, brother. I don't like throwing my money away. One question for you, Brian and Justin. It was mentioned on the radio that Butler does not like to use spies because it removes a defender elsewhere. Oh, 100%. I think I already talked about that, kind of. So I might answer your question preemptively. Yeah, essentially, again, it's a numbers game. Like I said, Kurt Soroka what he likes to do is flood you on one side. And like I talked about that, I broke down that one play, that Emmett Johnson touchdown, where we kind of overloaded their zones, right? And so as soon as you occupy a guy with a spy, you run that risk of them breaking a big play like that, because then they can overload you. Then all of a sudden, we had two tight ends on one side, we had a running back, so 12 personnel, and then we motion one over. But then we have that other running back coming across the field. We have one cutting up, and then like they don't have enough defenders to be able to manage, the wide receiver, the tight end, the running back, and the tight end coming across. They have 3 zones over there, and then you overload with 4, and then all of a sudden your little miscommunication there, or lack thereof, all of a sudden just, you break a big play because that number 6 was not able to get over in time on that play. So that's 100% why. Yeah, that exactly. And the last thing that we need another thing that we got to understand too, we cannot stop the run. And
yep.
You occupy a spy. His first step isn't forward. You know what I'm saying? Like his first step isn't downhill. So then you lose some aggression there up the middle, because our interior defensive line, things compound on each other. So that's why I try to just be careful about how I talk about it, because defensive play calling is not easy at all. And each thing that you try to do, it'll pull away from something else, but that's kind of where I wanted to see a little bit more aggression, just putting our defensive backs on a little bit more of an island and just letting them see what they can do, just so we can play around with it and see how much stress they can take, when we had that 3 touchdown lead. So
I think you can use spies in situations, but you see the people on X are like, we should be in a spy every snap. And I'm like, you cannot do that.
You'll lose.
You can do it maybe on 3rd and longs or something if you needed to, but
offensive coordinators are too smart.
Yeah, I would think that the way you combat that would be maybe to do more zone. That way your eyes are in the backfield as opposed to man. Or you could even let your corners run man and do zone underneath it for all I care. But when you don't have a bunch of eyes in the backfield, that's when Nico kills you. And that's exactly what happened last night. You're running man across the board basically, and he's running when they're not looking.
Yep. And then we got Joseph here. Shout out to Husker Wrestling. What they win 33-3 over Army.
And Ferrari did the splits.
Yep. That was a cool picture. Won in every sport yesterday. It's a good day.
And basketball just picked up a 4-star commitment today, 30 minutes before the show.
Yes, they did. Jacob Lanier.
From they say he's from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Believe so.
Player.
Yeah. Top 100. Kid. Top 100, 6'5". Yep. So things are looking up, man. If TJ keeps playing this way, we may have an interesting battle next season if we keep both. I'm just trying one game at a time. Trying to take it 1 week at a time. I'll worry about next year when it comes. We'll get that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. On other shows, I heard EJ was in use first 100 plus. Ask ChatGPT if Cody Ross ever did it, and it says no, but he was close. Got it.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
True on UCLA defense, I would have expected them to run blitz and rattle the QB. I don't know why they didn't. I think for them, like they were trying to prevent the explosive play and they were trying to prevent the deep ball or anything like that but I just think the way because we didn't throw a lot of deep balls, but what we did was we set up things that broke. And so maybe they were starting out a little bit less aggressive and they were going to just try to like make, TJ throw them, they put people in coverage and make him try to find tight windows. But I felt like as soon as that went awry, they should have.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't load the box with 8 from the jump.
Yep. So 1431 all-purpose yards by my calculation, number 1 in the country for running back. EJ had a good O-line for the whole season. He won the Heisman. He should at least be a candidate right now. Yeah, no doubt. Highly unlikely, but if TJ leads us to 10-3, including a bowl game win, then he should start next season. Again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, one thing I will add to this before we just move on from it is TJ came here not expecting to be the starter for a couple of years. That was they're very transparent in their recruitment with TJ. It was we got Dylan. We expect him here to be here for 3 years.
However, business.
You'll be ready.
Business at the end of the day.
This is where the NIL stuff is going to be a problem.
We were talking about, I think it was, who was it? Mike that asked in the last show, this offseason, do you focus on running back or O-line? Well, now do you focus on running back, O-line, or TJ Lateef? If that happens.
Yeah. If he is as good as we think.
Yeah. Way more design rollouts for TJ versus Dylan. Yes. Yeah. That by nature, I mean, just TJ's got the legs for it. You're not going to, if you roll out a lot with Dylan, not a lot of people are going to crash down and leave their zones. They're going to be like, okay, run it. Cause I trust myself to get down in time to be able to stop you before you get a first down, that type of thing. So there's the speed element. That's what makes the difference there, because not a lot of people are going to vacate their zones for Dylan. More people he's a good thrower of the football. They're going to stay back in their zone and they're going to crash down and trust their speed in their closing speed on him. So do you think the defensive line would dramatically improve next year without transfers? A lot of players seem young and one area has shown some flash of great play. No, I think we need to go in the portal.
There are 0 exceptions. This is why we're in this situation right now.
Yeah, we should have done it this
biggest thing. Yeah, the biggest thing is the development of Keona this year. I think last night was his best game of the year. He almost seems to me as someone that was almost forgotten because his impact has been less this year than last year. But also that goes with Williams. How does he continue to develop? People forget he's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be kind of a rotational guy, high-end rotational guy, not a 10, 15 snaps, but maybe 20 to 30 snaps a game. And now he's your bona fide rush end. He doesn't have great sack numbers, but his pressure numbers are through the roof.
As he develops
week in and week out.
He's just an athletic freak. And as he develops and everything slows down in his mind a little bit and the game slows down, think of Vincent Shavers early on versus Vincent Shavers at the end of the season last year. Where Matt Rule talked about he's going to be flying around. He's going to miss plays sometimes because he's playing so fast, but he's going to make more plays than he misses because of that. Think of Williams one area the same way. And he's going to develop more as a pass rusher. He's just a raw athlete. He's gotten better as the season's gone along, but everything's going to slow down a little bit more for him. So yeah. I'm about to throw this effing phone buffering every 3 seconds. Sorry about that. Never mind me. Don't throw it though. That'll make things worse. Been there.
That'll be way more expensive.
Huskers are 13th in total defensive yards. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of.
This is why I'm conflicted.
Yeah, and I think the frustration comes from the fact that it's the same things rearing their ugly head. But I've been trying to tell people week after week. I'm like, once it reached to like week 6 or 7, and we didn't see an improvement against the QB run or against the run, at that point you have to understand like it's not going to get better. And so we're just going to have to do everything around it well and do it as good as we can and play that as our strength. And that's what we've been doing again. So as soon as you take a defender and put him as a spy, then all of a sudden you start to take away from something you do very well, which is your coverage guys, So that's why I haven't been on Butler at all this year, really like hard on him at all. Because the defense is doing a lot of really, really good things. I just think the frustration point comes from when there's those moments where, maybe they come back in the game, or it's just a lot of the same things repeating themselves that we get frustrated with. It's like, we can't stop the run, but we know every week going into it that we're not going to stop the run. But every week we're pulling our hair out, and we know we can't stop the quarterback run, but every week we're pulling our hair out because we can't stop the quarterback run. I just think once people start accepting those things, and that at this point in the season, we are, and we got to just coach around it to the best of our ability, we'll be a lot less frustrated.
Yeah, for me, it's frustrating because I have high hopes and I'm a fan at the end of the day. But when I take a step back, and it's usually a day or so later when I kind of reflect on it a little bit more, I look at we were talking about the defensive line. That's what I look at. And I go, well, geez, RVP is a redshirt sophomore. Keona's a sophomore. Williams Nawari's a redshirt freshman. Cam Lenhart's a junior.
A lot of youth.
There's so much youth. I mean, one of our up and coming defensive line is a true freshman, Cade Pietzak or Peter Zach or however you say his name.
Pietzak.
It's just very young, and they're very small in comparison to like their positions. That's always been my biggest thing. Is you look at Michigan, their defensive tackles are 320 pounds. You look at ours, and they're 295.
Yeah.
And we run a 3-3.
We knew size was going to be a problem too.
Yeah.
Speaking of pronunciations, can we talk about how?
Oh my gosh, I know
he could not pronounce. Like, how can I pronounce his name? But this guy who's paid to do it and has a guy next to him and people in his ear the whole game, he couldn't even figure out how many syllables were in it. He said it different every time. Iamlavia, like
I say Amaliva just because of what happened in the offseason.
It's literally if you read it if you sound it out, Iamaliava, it's that easy. And this guy just was fighting for his life the whole game. He said it better when they were like, I'm gonna love you or whatever. I was like, just keep saying that, because at that point it's better than your attempts at pronouncing that poor guy's name.
I think he pronounced it differently, probably 80%
every single time.
Like, it was ridiculous. And at that point, like, just call him Nico. Like, we all know who you're talking about.
But just every A is an A. Iamaliava. Boom.
It was driving me nuts. I used to like Tim Brando like 5+ years ago, and we hadn't really had him on a lot of our games in the last couple of years, so I hadn't really been following him. But we've had him 3 times this year, and every time
it's been brutal.
It's brutal. And whoever that color commentator guy is the worst. I mean, he makes it every single thing to be the biggest play in the world, which is what Gus Johnson does.
Everybody hates when penalties are called against us. I tweeted that.
Oh, the unsportsmanlike conduct. It was a shitty call, but
you like had that gone the other way,
I just like handed him the ball, and like the ref was just like freaking out and like.
I mean, they spent 10 minutes justifying it, and then 5 more minutes talking about why they justified it, and like, yeah, I guess, but it's like, we get it. Just leave it alone at this point. You already pissed us off. So, and they can't call hold to save the life. So, do y'all think the outcome of the game would have been different either way had they actually called penalties on both teams? I try not to get into that too much, unless there's a specific call that affects the outcome of the game, or if it's egregious like PIs and stuff like that. But at the holds and stuff like that, like, I think I'm so just used to it at this point. That
it was bad both ways though, too, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really bad. But yeah, it was pretty bad both ways. So potentially, I mean, naturally, I think naturally, that's a lot of extra yards added in there, but that's such a nuanced subject that, how many could have been called both ways, that type of thing. So, but yeah, I would love to say yes on every single one of those. So yeah, we could win by a lot more if they just call the penalties. But all right. Thanks everybody for tuning in again for a late post game. Again, appreciate y'all bearing with us and tuning in today. So we will let y'all get going. Monday Night Football is going to be starting up probably within an hour or so. Sunday night. Damn, I'm on the wrong day of the week. Shows you how my brain's working. This damn Chihuahua's got me stressed. This is why I don't have kids, man. I'm stressed out with the Chihuahua. How can I have kids? So, all right, y'all, check us out on Tuesday. Tuesday, we'll be here live at 6 p.m. Central per usual, bringing you everything, getting you ready for the Penn State, some breakdowns of what we saw on offense this week, defensively as well, and kind of what we can expect going into Penn State. Also breaking down Penn State a little bit, what we saw against Indiana and what we think they might bring to the table. But again, a very talented team, a team with a lot of depth. So it'll be a really interesting game. No easy stretch. Don't let their record fool you. That is a very talented team still, and they are a physical team. And Nebraska can struggle at the point of attack, as we know. So y'all come in Tuesday. We will get you all geared up and prepped and ready for that game. Brian, is there anything else before we go ahead and conclude here?
No, we are good to go.
All right. Thank you again, everybody. We appreciate y'all as always. And I want to give a birthday shout out again to our guy, Mr. Ron T here. Happy birthday, brother. Appreciate you tuning in. Mike, good call there on everything. And appreciate you the other day. Thank you as always for tuning in, man. With that being said, we will see y'all in the next video. Peace.